and it's a pleasure to open this debate today. I thank the many members here who hope to raise transport concerns with the Roads Minister. I know from my experience that transport issues take up a significant proportion of our casework and inboxes. I would like to thank all of the constituents who have been in touch with me regarding transport since the election, and particularly in the last few days when I was preparing for this debate, because how we move around our communities affects everybody, and it is one of the most regular issues that comes up on doorsteps in and around Chichester. And when done correctly, transport systems make people's lives easier and support thriving local economies. And when it's done badly, it's a noose around the neck of an area that has so much to offer. And the South East has much to be proud of in terms of impressive pieces of transport infrastructure, vital not only to our communities but to the nation more widely, whether it's the beautiful Ouse Valley Viaduct, our strategically important airports, the Channel Tunnel, or even the admittedly long overdue but now incredibly satisfying M25A3 junction, which I had the pleasure of driving through at the weekend and enjoyed immensely. I'm sure I'll happily give way to my honourable friend.
Thank you and congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Chichester, for securing today's important debate on transport in the South East. And as you may know, I have long been championing the Western Rail link to Heathrow, which would enable speedy and sustainable surface access for the good people of the South East, and indeed 20% of the UK population, without the need to go in and then out of London and get people out of their cars. Does my honourable friend agree that given the government is prioritising investment in infrastructure, the government should commit finally to this project, because this is a perfect example of a project delivering for people, the environment and the economy?
Jess Brown-Fuller.
Pleased to hear that he's much closer to the government in charge than I am, and has a brilliant opportunity to make his concerns with the Minister today and make sure that it's heard very well, that you're absolutely right to raise going in of London and then out to get to these vital pieces of infrastructure feels like a nonsense. And I'm sure many honourable members across the House will wax lyrical about their own transport woes today, but it will come as no surprise that the focus of my contribution will be on the impact poor transport infrastructure has on my constituency of Chichester. And the Roads Minister knows that the A27 is one of the busiest trunk roads in the UK, and it's the main arterial route for those travelling down the coast all the way from Wiltshire in the west to East Sussex. Months ago, I invited the Transport Secretary during Transport Questions to come and sit in traffic with me. I have no idea why she declined, but my point was that it didn't matter when she came, at what time of day, what day of the week. I could guarantee we would be caught in congestion. Now, what the Transport Secretary did do is offer me a meeting with the Roads Minister, and I'm very grateful to the Roads Minister for sitting down with me so I could explain the issue in more detail. And if I was to stand here and pull up Apple Maps or Google Maps at this exact moment, there will almost certainly be a red ring around my city with traffic at a standstill. If it's bad, I'll happily give way to my honourable friend.
Can I commend the honourable lady for bringing this forward? I find myself in a very similar frustrating circumstances the honourable lady is indicating. For my case, it's the proposed Balnahinch bypass, which would breathe new life into Balnahinch. And as the honourable member in his intervention said before, it's been postponed and postponed since I was first elected to this House in 2010. Does the honourable lady agree, when it comes to road structures and infrastructure in particular, and what the honourable lady is requiring for her constituency, then these major projects will have major local effects? They will boost the economy. They will clear up the long waiting list when it comes to traffic. They will make jobs happen. And it must never be relegated to a dusty shelf, which for the last few years it quite clearly has.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention. And it's almost like he's read my speech in advance, because I'll be going on to a lot of the things that he has just raised in his intervention. Because if it's bad today in my constituency, it's hard to imagine how much worse it is on a sunny day, when tourists for the Witcherings queue for miles to reach our lovely sandy beach, or when Goodwood hosts an event that attracts visitors in their thousands. I will happily give way to my honourable friend.
For giving way. She's been very generous with her time, and she talks about coastal roads, and I would like to raise the current situation in South Devon. The A379, which is a glorious coastal road in my constituency, had already been damaged in storms in January, but last night huge chunks of it literally washed into the sea. It's absolutely devastating. And I was very shocked to be told this morning by officials at the Department for Transport that there is no national emergency fund for repairs to roads caused by, for example, storm damage. Would my honourable friend agree with me that as we see more intense and frequent storms caused by climate change, that the government needs to ensure it has funding ready to support communities like those around Torcross in South Devon that have been devastated by this damage?
I thank my honourable friend for her intervention, and she has shown me the photos today of what has happened in her constituency, and I share her distress at the fact that a main road, an A road, has literally fallen into the sea, and our constituency share the fact that we're both low-lying coastal plains that are the forefront of climate change, and as we see more of these storm events, we are seeing the damage happen in our communities. And that brings me on to a particular tribute that I'd like to pay to my residents living on the Manhood Peninsula, who get completely trapped in the summer months because of congestion on the roads. They're unable to get out of the area. And today they're trapped because all of the roads in and out of the Manhood are completely flooded. A constituent of mine, Georgia, left her job working as a nurse because her commute was taking 2 hours, with 1 hour spent travelling just the handful of miles from Emsworth to Tangmere. Chris's son has school transport and has to leave an hour before school starts due to the traffic on the A259 onto the A27. Again, he's only travelling a small number of miles. Melanie is planning on packing up her successful mental health business because the gridlock is, perhaps ironically, negatively affecting her mental health. Sean owns a funeral company, and he told me of the time he had to get out of the hearse to physically clear the traffic to get to the local crematorium on time. And Daniel owns a home carers company, and he regularly reports that staff get stuck on the A27, which means that the people they are caring for in the community miss medicine times and hospital appointments, and the backlog means that people get seen later and later in the day. I am in no doubt that this congestion we are seeing on the A27 is strangling the city, and it's putting off investment from businesses. It's stopping people coming and shopping in the city or in the business parks, and it's impacting people's daily life. Now, the A27 Chichester Improvement Scheme has a long history dating back to the 2000 South Coast Multimodal Study. Following several iterations, the scheme was included in the 2013 White Paper, Investing in Britain's Future, and the 2014 Road Investment Strategy. The scheme went to consultation in 2016 when 93% of respondents to a highway survey said that congestion was a problem on the A27. But in 2017, the Secretary of State removed the funding for any improvements along the Chichester stretch, and there remains significant anger and frustration among residents that they were never given the opportunity to vote on a preferred model of road improvements, especially as the Chichester district has seen more than its fair share of house building over the last decade. If the government expect areas such as ours to continue to sustain such an increased level of development, residents need to see the investment in infrastructure too. But instead it seems that their local services, be it GPs, schools, roads, buses, are just expected to manage the additional capacity with no extra resource. I have met with... I'll happily give way to the honourable gentleman.
Thank you very much, the honourable member, for giving way and pay tribute to her for securing the debate and the great speech she's making. She just mentioned the role of buses. I think there tends to be an assumption for people outside the South East that we all have the bus networks that are very similar to those in London. But you don't have to go very far from London, in my constituency in Dartford, for instance, to find that the bus services become extremely limited. And yet bus services can be such a driver of a better quality of life for people around getting to education, getting to work, being able to access other opportunities. Would you agree with me that the extra money that the government has given to county councils, in my instance, Kent County Council, an extra £42 million to spend in the coming year on improved bus services, must be spent to ensure that we provide better connectivity for all our residents irrespective of whether they're in Kent, Sussex, Hampshire or other parts of the South East.
That intervention tested my legendary patience to its very limits, but so just bear that in mind in the future. Jess Brown-Fuller.
Thank you, Sir John, and I thank the honourable gentleman for his very important intervention, and he's right to mention that County Council should be using that money effectively to ensure that people across the constituencies that we represent can actually get to the places they need to get to, which is certainly not the case in my constituency, especially in my more rural villages and hamlets.
On that note,
Happily give way to my honourable friend.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. It'll be a pithy intervention.
Far away.
One thing I've discovered is that the rural villages in my constituency, like Colden Common among others, people rely on the bus service to maintain their independence. And if the bus service goes, they can't get to hospital appointments, they can't stay in the house they may have lived in for years. So my friend agreed with me that there's more than just an economic impact to having good transport. It actually allows people to live a full and independent life without relying on care.
My honourable friend makes an excellent point, and he allows me the opportunity to thank organisations that offer community transport, such as the Selsey Venture Bus in my constituency or Contact 88, that are helping make sure that people can get to the places they need to go when transport infrastructure is lacking. So I have met with National Highways on multiple occasions since being elected, and I know that the original proposals for the A27 still exist in a drawer somewhere, ready to be brought back out to the table to address a road that not only doesn't function, but also remains in the top 10 nationally for casualties. National Highways have agreed to fund a study into the Fishbourne roundabout, which desperately needs addressing. This is due to report in the spring, and I hope the government will be forthcoming with funding for the proposed improvements, as it is such a dangerous roundabout, and I am one of many that have nearly been involved in an accident on that roundabout, and I do fear that there will be a fatality before long. The A27 Chichester bypass remains part of a future road investment scheme, and the Roads Minister has met with me to hear my plea to fund its improvement. But it would be great if the Minister could provide any reassurance today that funding will be attached to the A27 for that future road investment scheme, something all of my constituents will be desperate to hear. And if she is unable to commit to the level of funding required, will she please meet with me and National Highways to explore alternative schemes to address how people move around in my area? The government is keen to get more people onto public transport, reducing the reliance on cars in particular, but the increase in fares from £2 to £3 has had a significant impact on constituents that are trying to do just this. Christina gets her children get the bus to school every day, so she encourages public transport, but the cost is £26 for a 7-day child pass when the young people don't always get a seat. It's totally unacceptable. And if Christina chooses to take her 3 children into the city for the day, the cheapest option is a day rider that costs her £17 for 2 bus journeys, which last approximately 10 minutes each way. All of the above makes travelling by car by far the easiest and more sensible option, which is why we are calling for the reinstatement of the £2 bus fare cap and for fees to be halved for under 18s. And at the same time, bus routes are being amended to cover new housing developments, but without any additional services being added. So routes take longer than they did previously, and they're costing more, which is a perfect cocktail to disincentivise bus use. So I asked the Minister what steps the government is taking to encourage more people to use buses, and what steps they are taking to ensure that in places with major development, like my constituency of Chichester, adequate work is being undertaken to make sure that bus services for current residents aren't affected, and importantly, that public transport is a material consideration on new developments rather than an afterthought. Now, there are some great examples of active travel in my patch, particularly making the most of the disused railway lines along the Centurion Ray into the South Downs. But the issue is that councils such as West Sussex County Council, the issue that they face is that funding for these schemes is often linked to performance-related measures set by Active Travel England, and this creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, with councils that are already delivering good provision being rewarded and provided with further funds, whilst those that struggle are being left behind. So I'd love to understand from the Minister if the criteria linked to funding for active travel schemes will be reviewed by this government, so areas like mine aren't left behind with poor infrastructure because the County Council have historically struggled to deliver active travel schemes. There shouldn't be a postcode lottery in active travel provision, and projects to create cycle lanes and footpaths take far too long from the ideas phase to the actual delivery phase. And I'll just briefly touch on rail. Chichester is not endowed with services that are quick, punctual or affordable. Last year, 1 in 5 Southern Rail trains arrived in Chichester late, despite a season ticket to London costing nearly £8,000 annually. So although our party have long called for a freeze in rail fares, and we were glad to see the government do this last year, my residents are still paying well over the odds for the service that they receive, which is severely lacking. And the service into London is dreadfully slow compared with services from similar cities at a comparable distance. And this is partly due to issues in the infrastructure that have been ignored for years, such as the Croydon bottleneck, where the Arun Valley line joins the Brighton main line. Network Rail have said that this causes a ripple effect of delays across the system, prevents the expansion of the line in future, and creates delays across the entire network when there is a failure in service much further up the line. And it doesn't really ring very well in my constituency when they say, why are there delays in Chichester? And I say, oh, because of something that's happening in Croydon. It's disappointing that there hasn't been a commitment to the scheme despite widespread campaigning from members across the House. Reliable services are absolutely vital if passengers are to see value for money and the benefits of choosing rail, but that's not what is currently being offered by Southern Rail. So I do ask the government whether when it brings Southern Rail into public ownership, will they commit to reviewing a fast service for residents in Chichester and reconsider rail investment into the Croydon bottleneck? I hope the Minister has heard my plea today on behalf of my 120,000 constituents in the Chichester area and the South East region, because they don't ask for much. They are playing their part in the government's growth agenda, and they're seeing large-scale development in their area. All they ask is that they can move around their community safely and easily, which is something that is becoming less of a reality every day. I don't expect a magic money pot to suddenly appear, or even in advance of the next funding round of the road investment scheme, but what I do expect is fairness. And when those decisions are being made, I hope the Minister will remember that the previous government promised something to my constituents and then they took it away, and that's simply not fair. Thank you.
I remind members, I should say, they need to bob. I can see they know that already. And the question is, this House has considered transport in the South East. I think we'll have Shulan Joseph.